So today I'm very excited to present to you Demeter, where we are making farming more predictable. So on average today, a farmer pays around $375,000 per season on things like herbicides, pesticides, and irrigation. And the reason that cost is so high is because farmers have a very large amount of farmland, and there's no way that they can actually get to every single acre within their farm. So they rely on crop consultants, or they themselves spot check hundreds, if not thousands of acres on foot to identify issues that may come up, such as disease and pests. As you can imagine, this results in a reduction of harvest and very costly prevention measures. So to understand this problem deeper, we conducted a thorough customer research process where we interviewed researchers, farmers, agronomists, and really everybody along the ag spectrum. And what we consistently heard is that unpredictable and variable input costs are a top of mind concern. So to just provide a quote from one of the folks we interviewed, one of the farmers we spoke with, Robert, said, "The biggest issue is time. Farmers are struggling with a lot of issues and are not always able to catch them in a timely manner to take action. And we know there's loss associated with that." So at Demeter, our solution addresses the problem at the source by enabling the development of improved genetic varieties of seeds. The way we do this is through our hardware-enabled software platform, where breeders can leverage aerial systems in our software to phenotype for new seed varieties, identify specific plots where they have robust cultivars that they can breed, identify plants that are susceptible to disease and pests and plants that are not, and develop more robust varieties that can survive droughts and flooding as well. On average, growers will save $60,000 per season using the improved seed varieties that our platform enables. So the way it works is our machine learning algorithm is able to identify specific traits in plants. So in this image here, in this top set of images, you can see that our algorithm was able to identify crops that are more susceptible to a disease called northern leaf blight, and this is in corn crop. So using this algorithm, breeders can identify those crops that display resistance or specific traits that breeders want to create new seed varieties for. So that's today. In development, we're trying to create a high throughput phenotyping solution that improves the throughput of the solution and can identify traits at scale. And we're also developing a platform or a solution that allows breeders to identify emergence or the number of crops in a given plot. And this is really important for genetic breeding. So we have a couple of competitors in the field, companies like SlantRage, Hyphen, and Lemnitech. The problem with the existing players is that they focus on very capital intensive, very large solutions. So for example, Lemnitech has a gantry-based solution that scans large areas of fields, but it's relatively slow and it's a very large system. Our solution is very nimble because we go through drones and unmanned ground vehicles. And so we have the ability to scan large areas, but also be give the farmer that nimbleness that they need rather than investing in a very large system. We also provide statistical data outputs for breeders. Our target market right now is crop breeders, folks in the research community, universities, and internal research labs, as well as crop science and seed companies. So the market for this is very large. The market for crop management services in the US alone is $18 billion. The segment we're targeting in breeding is about $5 billion, and there's a huge revenue opportunity that we estimate to be around, around $140 million. Our business model is to charge customers $5,000 for an annual license, and they can purchase this license at a base level or upgrade to higher tiers. This gives our customers flexibility while providing us with recurring revenue. We have a very strong team that's developing this solution. with experience across business, research, and technical expertise. So I used to work as a management consultant and started another company in the electronics manufacturing space that went through Techstars and raised seed funding. Shalini Urankar has an MBA from Booth, and she's worked at large blue chip companies as well as working in investment banking. Dr. Kevin Price has worked for over 25 years in remote sensing and has over $50 million worth of grants that he's won. And our CTO, Mark Lanning, has over 20 years of developing and delivering software solutions. And he actually founded and exited his company, Goldfinch, back in 2013. We also have a strong advisory board with experience across several areas. So we have several VC advisors in Robert and Jeremy. Alex has a lot of strategy and operations experience. And Sabrina and Joyce provide our agronomy and technology expertise as well. So right now we're raising a $500,000 seed round to help commercialize our technology. And really what this will help us do is expand our engineering team with remote science and data science experts, conduct a beta pilot with farmers and crop breeders. And we actually have an agreement in writing with the University of Arkansas to do work in 2021 with several of their plot fields. We're also working on agreements with Kansas State University and Iowa State University as well. Additionally, we want to build relationships in academia. We feel that this is a very good place to kind of develop and test our technology before we go to mass market with it. And thank you so much. I'm happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions?
Yeah, my name is Mark White, what crop species are you initially targeting?
Yeah, so we'd like to target the commodity crops. So right now we're looking at corn, and we're also with University of Arkansas looking at soybean.
So what do you think your addressable market is? Because obviously with corn, to breed corn, you need access to germplasm.
Yeah, so we're not actually doing the genetic breeding. We're doing the phenotyping piece, right? So we're collecting this data, we're giving the statistical outputs to the folks who are doing the genetic breeding, and they'll take these outputs and put it into they have specific software for genetic breeding. But a lot of this information helps with kind of the iterative process of developing that new seed variety, right? So with more information and being able to know, a lot of genetic breeding is like, of my landscape of information, what 10% do I actually need to develop the new seed variety on, right? Finding that 70, 80, 90% that I don't need to focus my energy on. So that's really what we're enabling, right? Kind of giving them the data and the robustness around it to do the breeding.
So as a consequence, it's kind of drives at the same question I was asking. What do you think your addressable market sizes are?
Yeah, so right now we're looking at the $5 billion genetic breeding market. But I think if we can scale this across the commodity crops, so corn, soybean, rice, potatoes, the total addressable market is around $18 billion for all these crops. And if we can expand a little bit beyond genetic breeding to more general crop management and being able to identify diseases and pests and things like that, there's a much bigger market.
Right, that doesn't drive it. That drives it what the market size is for those crops, but it doesn't drive it what the market size is for your platform. The reason I'm asking, if you're looking at commodity crops, the people who could actually use this, and I think phenotyping is a critical part of that chain of innovation and development. But you really have a remarkably few number of breeders, and people who have access to the germplasm. That's why I asked the other question. So it would seem that market size for your product is rather small, unless the vision is to use that as a stepping stone to these other use cases for the platform.
No, I think I think you hit the nail on the head, right? So initially, as a beachhead market, we're focusing on these universities, University of Iowa, Arkansas, Kansas State, to really test this phenotyping solution. I think the broader application here is can you be able to identify using AI and ML specific markers of disease or issues caused by irrigation, or maybe sunlight not getting through to different levels of the plant, right? There's different things you can identify for using AI. And an initial application that really has product market fit is phenotyping, something we can go to market with immediately. But later on, I think we can expand that to other applications as well.
Great. Thanks for the presentation. Good job.
Thanks, Mark.
We have a couple more questions in the chat box from Brianna McDonald. These farmers have all been hit hard by COVID and weather. How are you going to penetrate these markets?
Yeah, so again, we're looking at the phenotyping market right now, focusing on universities. So a lot of the universities have this already fixed in their budgets to work on phenotyping work. And they have been expanding into bringing on kind of more automated methods and drones. So this is already kind of in place, right? We're just providing a better solution. This is why we're able to gain some traction with universities. Longer term in the ag market in general, I think by the time we scale, COVID-related impacts will kind of be in the rearview mirror. So that's kind of a short-term effect that won't impact us long-term.
Okay. There's another question from Vikash in the chat box. How do you plan to bring this to the farmers, i.e. tie-ups with Cargills of the world? Have you reached out to some of them for their interest?
Yeah, so there's kind of two ways to do this, right? So there's the Cargills and the Syngentas and big ag companies like that, or we can go through kind of smaller distributors that sell in some of this equipment. Right now, we haven't put too much time into distribution and go to market. Right now, we're really focusing on this initial market of research universities and vetting out the application, vetting out the value proposition, developing the technology. And then once we have that developed, to really focus on the go-to-market and build out a sales team and identify distribution channels. So we haven't approached like a Cargill or those companies yet, focusing primarily on this initial beachhead market of universities.
Are there any other questions from Munir?
So I have one question. How difficult is to copy your idea?
Yeah, it's pretty difficult. So on the one hand, there's IP that we're licensing from Columbia University. So we have, IP protection. But on top of that, the moat here really is collecting all the data you need to train the AI. So if somebody wanted to copy this, they have several years of just legwork that they need to do before they even start developing the platform. And on top of that, you have to, ag is a very kind of, it's a market where you need relationships in the space. And so we have a strong network of university partners and researchers that we've gone out to talk to generate sales and, strike these partnerships. So copying the technology is pretty difficult, and then obviously commercializing it, there's also challenges as well.
So your competitive is your network, right? Because you have some ag relationships. Is that
from a commercialization standpoint? But I think your question was more on technology, right? How can you
overall, right? There's an approach, right? There's a drop box and there's a box. Box is enterprise. That's how those two companies started, with a very simple formula, right? So the idea is that what is the barrier of entry in your space? If somebody wants to start, what will be the entry level barrier? Will it be high? Will it be low? Will it be moderate?
Yeah, so again, just to reiterate, right, the barrier to entry is fairly high because you need to collect all this data to train your algorithms on, right? And so, yeah, that's.
And you have an exclusive license to it, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, basically, there's no way they're going to get that patented information.